All right.
Omni
All
Oath
right.
versus Terra Nova Shots.
That's right. Kai is going to be trying to make his own spells cost nothing, and Chris is going to be trying to make Kai's spells cost a lot.
That is the fight they're on, isn't it? Here's
It
the list.
is.
The list that Kai's got, the card that makes them cost nothing is, of course, Omniscience. He's basically only going to come into play off of his show and tell. So, I mean, you've got your basic Oath of Druids engine, right? Oath of Druids, along
Right.
with the Forbidden Orchard to give your opponent a creature.
Mm-hmm.
Emrakul and Grizzlebrand is his creature set, but that show and tell dimension just gives him this whole other angle. And Seiju potentially can even make the show and tell uncounterable, though that's not relevant to this match.
Well, I guess in case of Chalice of the Void at 3 arrives.
Oh, yeah, fair enough.
Here's Chris's Terra Nova list. He has 2 Blink Moth Nexus. That's interesting. And
sometimes you got to have creature lands number 9 and 10.
No, I understand. Absolutely. He has 4 Mishra's Factories and 4 Mutavaults. And let's take a look at these opening hands. It looks like Kai won the roll. And he has
he's got
Black Lotus,
Orchard.
Oath. He can cast Demonic Tutor and get a Force of Will if he wants, as well as
he can Oath off Forbidden Orchard on the first turn, right? He's got the entire combo. You want to talk about a die roll game? Chris can play turn 1 Null Rod, so who's on the play? Looks like it's Kai.
It's Kai. So here comes Black Lotus. And it looks like Demonic Tutor is happening.
Sure. Yeah, so he can DT for Force of Will, just like you said, and then still drop the Orchard.
There it is.
Tap that for the green mana, and to give Chris a creature. All right, Chris.
This is
how do you feel about starting a turn against an enemy Oath of Druids while you already have a creature?
This is not an ideal set of circumstances for Chris Pikula.
Is there any way for Chris to recover from this?
I
mean, forget about the fact Kai also has a Force of Will in his hand. But I mean, if Chris could stack his deck and Kai didn't have his creatures at the bottom 2 cards.
I think at this point, Chris's hope is that the bottom 2 cards of Kai's deck are Emrakul and Grizzlebrand.
Yeah.
There's the too little, too late Null Rod.
Crazy.
Now, what Chris does have in his hand is a clone effect. So he's going to be able to run out that clone effect and try to copy whatever Kai gets. The first one's likely getting forced. The second one, however, might arrive, though if Kai happens to hit Demon, he's going to be able to pay 7 life and then 14 life to dig for an extra copy of Force.
Also, even if he gets Emrakul, he's going to get to annihilate him.
Yeah, I don't think that Chris is going to be able to have enough permanence to get around that.
Precisely.
So
we have a technical problem on our side.
Oh, Magic Online is
yeah. I don't know if we're still going out live or not right now. I suspect we are.
Is it?
All right, Magic Online crashed on our
other just crashed. Very good.
We'll get it back.
It was yeah. No, these things happen sometimes. I experienced something not dissimilar when I was trying to get a warm-up match in earlier today.
It's actually the first one of those we've had, a season and a half.
That's pretty good.
All right, may have lost the webcams as well, but we can, of course, get that back. Meanwhile, our players are sideboarding. Yeah, so guess what? Kai won.
Well, we at least saw what led up to that. I don't know if he got an Emrakul or a Grizzlebrand, but they're both pretty good Magic cards as far as these things go. I'm getting an issue with Skype.
Yeah, hopefully we'll be able to get everything repaired. Sounds like the problem is just on our problems more on our side. So, do you think this matchup changes much with sideboarding?
Huh? Can you see me? Am I? All right, very good. It is really dark. I don't know why that is. Okay, there we go. So, what does can we get the lists to see what Chris has?
We can.
So he
Chris
has four Grafdigger's Cage, and Grafdigger's Cage is a way to prevent Oath of Druids from working, but it doesn't stop Show and Tell.
Right. That's really, for me, the biggest innovation that Kai and Luis have with this list is they're no longer just losing to Grafdigger's Cage. They don't have to answer it because Show and Tell that they've baked in as a crucial part of their strategy anyway just naturally beats it.
Right, and before these sorts of decks they had a couple Shows and Tells. I think Harry Corvesi had two Show and Tell in his deck at Vintage Champs, but now they have four copies, which really makes them much better able to play that game. Part of the difficulty before is that Show and Tell required that you had one of your Oath targets in your hand, but by adding Omniscience to the deck, you now have an extremely powerful card that you can show into play without needing to clog your deck up with a bunch of uncastable creatures.
Totally agree. All right, we are back.
Now here it looks like Chris has a very powerful start where he can lead with a Nullrod and a Sphere. And Kai has turn one Show and Tell, but that's probably going to get stopped because Chris is almost certainly going to run out that Nullrod.
And Kai doesn't have anything to show and to play in the first place.
Right. He could try to if Kai were on the play, he could lead with a Ponder to try to hit something and then cast it, but he's not going to get the opportunity to cast that. In fact, he probably won't be able to do anything on his first turn. Now Chris is leading here with a Sphere effect.
Yeah, interesting.
And that precludes his casting Nullrod.
Yep. Yeah, if he'd gone Nullrod into Thorn, he could have played them both on the first turn, but I think he likes being able to tap his Mox Ruby for now. What do you think of that sequencing?
Well, I think it might be hedging around force, but I still think I like the idea of trying to get two threats out instead of one.
No, that's a good point. I think Chris did exactly what you're suggesting. He wanted to lead with the Thorn so that if Kai forced it, Chris could use his last 2 mana to then play his other Thorn. That way he's going to get a Thorn into play on turn 1, even if there's a Force of Will. I think I do like that sequencing from Chris. It's just the fact that Kai didn't have the Force of Will meant it looks a little awkward, but hey, you got your Thorn down, and the fact that Kai doesn't have a Force of Will is actually good news for Team Pikula.
That is good news for him. That's true. Though if Kai had an Oath, he could have cast it.
Potentially.
Now, if I'm sure that Nullrod will arrive here, since that Black Lotus is such a terrifying card.
Well, I mean, the only way Kai could play Oath from Chris's perspective is off exactly Black Lotus.
Right.
Like, you can't go land Mox Oath because your Oath costs 3. Yeah, Chris opens up this 1-turn window where exactly the card Black Lotus can be good against him, but even when Kai has Lotus, he doesn't necessarily have everything to do with it. So.
Right, and in this case, he didn't.
Yeah. So Chris is able to resolve a Nullrod, effectively shutting off the Black Lotus, and also an additional Thorn.
And you see here, once again, how going first is so key. If Kai had gone first, he could have pondered, found that Gristlebrand, and then cast Show and Tell. Instead, he's essentially locked out here, as he can cast spells that cost -1 mana.
And none of his jewelry are going to tap for mana either.
Right,
and there's a Wasteland for the Volcanic. Can Kai come back from this?
It's theoretically possible, but exceedingly unlikely.
I mean, he's got an Abrupt Decay, right? That doesn't do nothing. Eventually, something.
Abrupt Decay costs 4 mana, and
none of it can come from power.
Right. So Nullrod has been an extremely important card in Vintage since the format was called Type 1. just because it's so good at shutting off Moxen and Black Lotus and Sol Ring and Mana Crypt, and that was even before people started to play Time Vault and Voltaic Key, and it shuts that combo off too.
Yep. Yeah, brutal game. Chris is going to take him a few turns to mop up, right? It may take 10 attacks from that Mishra's Factory, in fact, but
it might, but
it's hard to imagine Kai resolving a spell.
It is, and worse come to worse. Once Chris gets ahead in life, he even has that Wasteland. Now, I'm sure he'd rather not, not have to pay life to attack with his factory, but at some point he'll be so far ahead that draining 2 from each player every turn will be perfectly acceptable.
All true. Yeah,
there's a Mutavault to join in the fray.
Right now, Ancient Tomb can power up 4 power worth of creatures. That's probably the way. And Kai has seen enough.
Kai makes concedes. There's really not much left for him to do.
Now, we looked at Chris's sideboard to see what he might have in order to fight Kai, and we saw the Grafdigger's Cages, which we saw actually in play there at the end. Does Kai have... What's Kai's plan?
Yeah, let's take a look. List? So, he has 2 Abrupt Decays, which do answer some cards like Chalice
of the Void. Enough to come in. It's mostly 4 Ingot Chewer, 2 Chewer. And Basic Mountain will come in too, I'm sure.
Basic Mountain's a powerful card. It really is. Ingot Chewer is interesting because, on the one hand, it's not all that exciting to Oath into an Ingot Chewer, but on the other hand, it's not unexciting to Oath into an Ingot Chewer.
Good enough. Not just good, but good enough. Is that your plan?
Exactly. So, Ingot Chewer is a 1-mana card that doesn't care about Chalice at 1 and also doesn't care about Thorn of Amethyst. And there aren't many Magic cards. In fact, there aren't any other Magic cards that have those 2 criteria.
Yeah, no, it's been a staple in anti-shop sideboard plans. I always felt weird having it in against Oath, but I think I might just agree with you. I think Oathing into Ingot Chewer is, in this matchup, it's not like they're going to kill you next turn, right?
Right. And I think it's better against Terra Nova than against Martello, because Martello can have a lot of really scary threats, but against Terra Nova, I think all of their creatures get either completely stopped or at least trade with a 3/3.
Sure.
And Kai, once again, has Black Lotus. For people watching at home, that card is, in fact, restricted. You're only allowed to play with one of them.
You can't just count on having it in your opening hand all the time?
Right, exactly.
His hand doesn't do much else, though.
It does not. It does not. And so this is very interesting. Kai's hoping to draw a threat before he gets buried under these sphere effects, but he has
wow.
There is the Oath of Druid.
Wow, Kai, Budde,
just to make it look like a game, Kai didn't get this until his 2nd turn, but now he's able to play Oath of Druids, and in fact, he can even cast Ancient Grudge and then play Oath of Druids.
Yeah, the only question here now is the sequencing and what color and what else he's doing. So yeah, he is going to Ancient Grudge the Thorn.
Mm-hmm.
He's then going to fetch up a land. Wow.
So crazy. At this point...
Yeah, this is the combo we talked about. If you can get Oath of Druids into play and a Forbidden Orchard, there's really not much the shop stack can do to recover from that board state.
There's not. So even if Chris were to draw a Grafdigger's Cage here, Kai can flash back his Ancient Grudge.
Mm-hmm. So I guess Kai, and Kai even has Tropical in play plus Tropical in hand.
So
he's not hurt 3 mana. Yes, Chris would somehow.
I think Chris is back on the I hope my opponent's 2 creatures are at the bottom of his library plan, which is not an ideal spot to be in, really.
Quite the top deck. Some of these shop
Absolutely.
decks do run a duplicant, which might be able to do a little bit here. I don't even think Chris has a duplicant.
I don't think he does. I think that Terra Nova doesn't usually have a lot it can do under these circs here.
Yeah. Maybe if Kai oaths into mere ingot chewers, can Chris stitch anything together?
Oh, that's a great point. Okay, so at this point, right, Chris is hoping that Ingot Chewer will arrive, but that also takes away the hope my opponent decks himself plan that Chris otherwise could have had. So
that one never works out. I think Chris is happy with Ingot Chewers in the deck, junking it up, given that oath's in play.
Right. So even here, a steady stream of Ingot Chewers is probably going to be enough for Kai until Gristlebrand or whatever an Emrakul is supposed to be arrives.
It's an Eldrazi.
Yes, until an Eldrazi arrives.
Yeah, Chris just trying to figure out how to maximize whatever small chance he has here. He's decided having an additional Soul Ring is the answer. And that way he can play a Lodestone Golem.
There is a Lodestone Golem. So let's see what the Druids have in store for Kai today.
Survey says, what's in there? Ingot Chewer.
There's an Ingot Chewer. Okay, so
down goes Lodestone Golem.
I think Kai's certainly gotten his 2 mana's worth from Oath of Druids.
That's all it does, right? He's done now?
Well, so it's interesting. And there...
Oh, wow. Grafdigger's Cage almost does something. Chris needs to... How many of those in a row does Chris need to draw before one can actually hang around? 3?
Well, so I guess it stops Kai from flashing back his Ancient Grudge, but it can get abruptly decayed. And if Kai didn't have that Mox Jet, then this would cut him off of the ability to cast that. But he does have Mox Jet.
Yeah, it's interesting. Chris is wastelanding the Forbidden Orchard there because he wants to stop acquiring creatures. And he thinks maybe if Kai gets a second Ingot Chewer here, that maybe the Oath is done. Right? Until Kai draws another Forbidden Orchard, Kai
actually, if Chris clones his Grafdigger's Cage, I guess Kai can kill it in response, though.
Yeah. Either Abrupt Decay or Ancient Grudge can be flashed back as a response.
Right.
Even with the Thorn, okay, fine. They're +1 mana. Chris is fighting a good fight.
Yeah, he is.
If Kai hits merely an Ingot Chewer again, then we get to play for a while, right?
I think so. Chris's deck just doesn't have a lot of tools to allow him to fight this. And note that Kai still has a mana floating.
Sure. Yeah, it looks like Chris is going to attempt to copy the Grafdigger's Cage here. That plan just loses to Ancient Grudge, though, right?
He. I think
it can't be flashed back.
I think this actually works.
It would work if it wasn't for the Abrupt Decay in Kai's hand.
Well, the first, yes,
that's a great point. The Grafdigger's Cage, the fact that you can't play cards from the graveyard either, means you can't flash back an Ancient Grudge to kill it. What Chris doesn't know is that Kai has Abrupt Decay.
Could Chris have just moved to his attack step to clear Kai's mana pool, so Kai couldn't have used that floating mana in response to this clone?
Yes, but Kai still has enough because he only has to pay +1.
That's true.
I don't think he didn't have the mana to get the sphere down, and also Chris was floating mana as well. Don't forget. I guess he could have wastelanded first, then gone to second main, but I don't think that floating mana actually matters much. There's the thing is, even if Kai merely gets an Ingot Chewer, it's not clear Chris can beat a couple of Hill Giants.
Yeah, yeah.
3/3 is pretty good if your big plan is to attack with 2/2 creature lands.
It's true. It's true.
All
I
right,
mean, the biggest thing.
Here is the Abrupt Decay from Kai. Yeah, he absolutely has to kill Grafdigger's Cave.
There it is. Yeah, so, right, I mean, eventually Chris can build a creature that's, I guess, up to a 6/6. Chris's deck is theoretically capable of producing a 6/6 Factory Worker God Atog. And believe me, I think that would be awesome.
You just always see Mutavaults as Atogs? That's what you're telling me?
Well, they are Atogs.
It's true. True story.
God Atog Ninja Pirates. And
what do you think Chris does with this Metamorph now? Can it do much of anything? You just copy a Thorn and...
he could copy the Ingot Chewer and blow up the Jet. I don't know if that's all that exciting, though.
And he's got a third creature, though, right?
I
mean, Oath is going to activate.
Yeah. Maybe you just copy the Thorn, then.
I think I copy the Thorn here, and then hope Kai flips over merely an Ingot Chewer.
Right. And then...
No, he's going to copy Ingot Chewer, so he's going to kill the Jet.
That seems reasonable. I mean,
no, it's a reasonable option. I'm just, like I said, I mean, it's all... Kai's Oath is obviously the most powerful thing going on this board. You got rid of the Forbidden Orchard, so in theory, Kai only gets another shot, but now he's got 2 shots.
I guess we can see what Kai gets.
Survey says...
Is that a Griselbrand?
It's a Griselbrand, yeah.
Oh. Huh.
Well, that should do it, right?
Oh, and then just in case, there's another Ingot Chewer.
Indeed.
Oh. I decided to draw 7 cards. That's a thing that you can do when you have a Griselbrand.
Seems fair.
Fair and balanced, yes. So options that Kai has include just casting Ingot Chewer, blowing up Thorn, and then having Ancient Grudge flashback mode online to dispatch whatever Kai happens to do.
Yeah, he goes ahead and
evokes. Whatever Chris happens to do.
He does go ahead and evoke the Ingot Chewer, blowing up the Thorn.
Oh,
does do anything here?
I'm not sure anything does anything here.
Yeah, no, neither am I. I guess technically Kai is down to, what, 20-something cards in the library?
He might decide that he no longer wants to be a druid, though.
Right. That's what I'm wondering. Do you just content yourself with 3 Griselbrand attacks at this stage, or do you actually activate Oath?
I don't think Kai has any reason to be hasty here. I think that opening himself up to the small possibility of losing off decking isn't worth it, since he's just got this game so well in hand. On the other hand, he has Brainstorm and Ingot Chewer, so he actually could just Brainstorm back Ingot Chewer.
Hilarious.
So, yeah, in fact, he can clear off his least favorite card in hand, as well as just get a bonus Ingot Chewer, all for the price of 1 mana.
It's not clear he needs more than a couple of Griselbrand attacks, but...
He might not actually need that. I think I quite likely has this game.
Yeah, he drew 7 more on Chris's turn, so he's at 4. Instead of scary low life total, right?
It is. There's really nothing that's going to stop him from getting 7 with his good pal Griselbrand on his turn, though.
Indeed. Yeah, knowing the deck list helps here.
Yeah,
I absolutely. Just no fear going down to 3 life.
Right. He knows that Chris isn't holding a bunch of gut shots in his hand, ready to deploy them at such an occasion.
Yeah, the no duplicant is also probably the real scenario.
Yeah,
Kai is going to Brainstorm Ingot Chewer.
Oh, well, it looks like he can have an Emrakul if that's what he's into, and I think he can actually just assemble Show and Tell, Omniscience, and Emrakul next turn, while also setting up an Oath for Inkature.
So he brainstorms not the Emrakul, because if he puts Emrakul into play...
He wants to cast Emrakul. Because if Emrakul arrives with the Druids, if that happens...
It's hilarious. He's brainstorming to set up an Oath of Druids, but he doesn't want the Emrakul. Let's just talk about this for a second.
Well, he wants to cast Emrakul and take the bonus turn. And
I know, it's just like 15/15 Annihilator monster, not good enough.
No, he wants the Ingature. He wants the Ingature, and that's going to... There we go. They can play Show and Tell.
Activate the Oath. If Kai plays a 4th creature, if only Chris got another turn, he could activate the Oath. Somehow
he could. You could get a 5/3 out of this deal.
Actually, I mean, if Kai misclicks through his attack phase, he could lose a script flip.
I guess I think that's the main plan that Chris has at this point. Yes.
All right, not happening. Do we get to Annihilator? Chris, it's a perfect victory for Kai here, right? Chris will have no cards in hand and no permanents.
Right. Chris could win if he had the cheese stands alone, I think.
Pretty much.
No cards, no hand, no library. Well, he has a library, but no board, and a very low life total.
Crazy. Annihilator.
There it is, Annihilator 6, and it looks like Kai won the roll as well. Just in case he had misclicked, it wouldn't have mattered.
Should Kai have? Should he have flashback Ancient Grudge to blow up his own mana crypt? Lost the ability to draw 7 cards pre-combat. Wow, flawless victory. No permanents and no cards in hand, and now -19.
There you go.
So Kai seems to have decided he's done losing games.
Kai has stopped losing, started drawing Black Lotus a lot, and
yeah, he had quite the losing streak. He actually started his Vintage Super League career with 9 consecutive game losses. He was not just 0-4, he was 0-4-0-8, and then lost the first game last week. But
I think that you can't ever write Kai off because he's Kai.
Oh, no. I don't think anyone did. But yeah, he's figured out how it works now. Got the win last week. Now he got the win here, which knocks Chris down to a 2nd loss, gets Kai up to 2-4, where he can still dream about putting a run together. I mean, 5-4 was good enough to make the playoffs last year.
Yeah, that was an exciting game that showcased the power of Black Lotus, the importance of being on the play when you're playing against Mishra.
True.
And it had a lot of extremely powerful, extremely high variance cards, and I think that deck is not unlike the Belcher deck that you played in the last run, in the sense that it does a lot of extremely powerful things. It can have game-ending first turns, and it presents a lot of threats very quickly and can easily overwhelm an opponent's defenses.
Well, tell you what, instead of us talking about this match, let's get the 2 of them in here to talk about this match.
Sounds good.
They are on tap to commentate the match. It's going to be me playing against Bob, and when we come right back, it will be Chris Pikula and Kai Budde doing the commentary. Stay tuned.